Kiwi. Good seeing you guys. Okay, now we'll go live on YouTube. Okay. Before there were the Twitter files, there was Zach Vorhies, my guest today, who I've had on the show a few times before. And Zach Vorhies was the guy at Google who originally released that Google was censoring what they called fake news, which was real information. And he also revealed the blacklists and all of the stuff that was shadow banned. So I wanted to welcome him on again to talk about the Twitter files and how that's similar or different from what you revealed about Google. Kind of what you're doing now. We should talk about Trump's latest announcements, because Trump says if he becomes president, he's going to do something about free speech, in addition to his other announcement today. And I want to talk about the new AI too, and then you can talk about whatever else you're working on. So anyway, how you doing, man?
Talk about. I'm good. I'm working on a secret project here in San Francisco. It's a lot of fun, and I'm using artificial intelligence every single day now to help me program, and it's been one of the biggest. Actually, it is by far the biggest boost I've ever had in productivity. It's just absolutely incredible. We've got this like new age ahead of us with this AI, and I want to talk about that and what's going on with Trump and the Twitter files and et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, cool. So you're talking about ChatGPT mostly with AI?
It's kind of a split. Like from day to day, I use a different AI called Microsoft Copilot. Actually, it's GitHub Copilot, but it's made by Microsoft. And yeah, it's incredible. It's an autocompleter. So it sees what you're typing and it tries to predict what the next thing is that you're going to type. And you can just insert a comment of what you're about to implement. And then boom, it like spits out. I mean, usually it spits out a few lines, but if you're about to do like a large function definition, it will just kind of pattern match what it's seen before in that language and then just autocomplete the entire thing. And it's pretty amazing. And then I also use ChatGPT. ChatGPT is more comprehensive, but there's interactivity problems. They're overloaded, and it doesn't look at the context of what you're currently typing. You kind of have to feed it in to get the right prompt. But ChatGPT is far along a much, much more powerful system than Copilot is. It's just Copilot's got the integration that's constantly watching what it is that I'm typing.
So Copilot, is that something specifically for computer programmers, or is that something you can chat with too?
Yeah, so if you have the Visual Studio Code, so it's called VS Code, it's free. You can install the AI Copilot for $10 a month. I think they've got like a free month of sign up. And then it basically looks at your programming code and tries to figure out what's going to come next. It does JavaScript, it does C++, it does Python, it does Bash, it does Docker files. It's got a pretty wide knowledge base of things that it can autocomplete.
All in like different kinds of programming languages.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, that's something I saw people were doing with ChatGPT. I'm not a coder, but I could tell that it's something people are really excited about. Like you can tell it, hey, I want to program something that looks like this, and then it'll write the code for it. Right? Is that...
Let me give a concrete example. Like I'm getting a lot of sensor data right now in one of the projects that I'm working on. And so I want to take, and that sensor data is noisy. So I want to take sort of like the middle value and chop off the extremities. And so I was like, oh, I need to select the median position. It's actually a really expensive operation. And I was able to go to ChatGPT and I was like, write the median select option. They'll run in O of n time, which is a measurement we use in computer science to figure out how long something's going to take. And it spit it out and it worked. And I was just absolutely blown away that it was able to do that. Like, obviously it's seen it before, it's seen it in different forms. So it kind of like chose, I think, something that it's seen in its database. But I mean, it basically saved me from having to go through a search engine and find an example that was close enough to my exact sort of specifications. Like once I told it what I wanted, it pretty much just pattern matched almost an identical one and then changed all the symbols so it matched exactly what my parameters were.
Wow. it sounds amazing. I mean, I'm sure it's like overly complicated for a lot of people to understand, but it sounds like, well, does it put coders out of business, or does it still, it sounds like it still requires human interaction, right? It
Yeah.
requires the
So
human to tell it to do something.
right. So this is kind of the difference between programming with AI and doing art with AI. Art with AI is just so incredible that pretty much it's going to wipe out the artist community, right? It's all going to go to AI
Right.
generated stuff. Like,
Right.
and now music's on the chopping block. Today there was just basically the same thing as Stable Diffusion for images came out for music called something riff something.
Oh, really?
And yeah, you can see it on my twitter.com/perpetual maniac. I tweeted about it. It's actually got some really, passably catchy music that it auto generated.
Really?
And so, music's kind of going to be the next to be wiped out, unfortunately. But with AI, it doesn't, like, right now it's still a little buggy. So you have to really check what it is that the AI wrote. But you still have to sort of like have someone that is designing out the entire system, because the AI will give you solutions that just are wrong. And with music, if you hit the wrong key, it's like, okay, life goes on. But with programming, it has to be 100% correct, or you've got a bug, and that bug will sort of pinball through your program and just cause it to crash. And so, unfortunately, due to the requirements of accuracy, these tools are not at the level yet where they're going to put programmers out of business. In fact, what it's doing is it's increasing productivity of every programmer that uses it. Like, if you're a crappy programmer, it's gonna way increase your level. I'm actually teaching non-coders to actually use this thing for their scientific and engineering fields. That's how powerful it is.
Really?
But I think that in the next maybe 3 years, we are going to get to the level where you'll be like, I want an app that does, that converts, that has like a button that does a file thing and takes in a WAV file and then converts it to an MP3. I think that sort of natural language explanation to create an app on the fly will exist in the next couple of years.
Within
But
the
we're
next
not there.
couple,
I
within the
think,
next
yeah.
couple of years,
Yeah,
huh?
I think programmers still have around 2 years at least of life yet. I'm riding the wave because it's like I'm going. I know that this is the future, and it's making me like I would consider myself sort of a mid-level tier, but with this AI, I've sort of jumped up to, the best of the best. And it's like totally
Really?
changed the way that I look back at all the people that were really, really good, and I know that I'm now coding faster than they would be without, this AI. I can only imagine what it would do to people that, are really, really, really at the top of the game, and then they get AI, and then the thing's even better. Like, we're going to see superheroes come out of the software programming field that are AI augmented. They know all the AI stuff, and they're just going to generate huge swaths of correct code, 100 times, 10 to 100 times faster than an engineering team. Like, I think that we'll have people that are AI augmented really being one man shows for entire software projects. It's going to be absolutely insane.
Wow. I mean, people are probably thinking about it. You're almost talking about, when you talk about AI augmented, so you're using AI to enhance yourself, basically, which some people would equate with transhumanism,
Yeah.
basically. I mean, it's one step down the road, right? Is that we have to use the AI to supplement us. Otherwise, we're not keeping pace with our competitors. So that's where it's at now, right?
Bingo. Bingo. You get it, Nathan. See, a lot of people don't get this. They're like, oh, transhumanism, look, those are scare tactics. The elites do not want you putting chips in your brain, okay? Because the people that put the chips in the brain are going to be fantastic, you know, uh, aspects of the economy. Like, they'll just be so productive because they're going to be able to interface with this thing. I mean, like, right now when I interface with the computer, I have to use my fingers, and it's super slow. Like, someone that's got a direct link into a computer system is going to be the person that is so productive that they're going to run society. Like the people that are transhumanists are going to run society in the future. We have to recognize that. And so this
Hmm.
fear, uncertainty, doubt, oh, they're going to they just want to scare you so that you don't do it. Believe
Hmm.
me, the elites are going to jack into this thing because if they don't, the people that do will take control of society.
Hmm.
And just as a casual user, actually a heavy user right now of AI, I have to say that it's going to be exponential growth from here. Like, remember when we had the Pentium 90, right? 90 megahertz, and now we're at like 4 gigahertz and multiple CPUs. We're at like 1,000 times processing power what we had in the 90s, maybe even 10,000. We're going to see the exact same thing with AI. Right now in AI, we are at the Pentium 90.
Hmm.
And in the next 10 years, we're going to go from the Pentium 90 to like the 8 core, 4 gigahertz CPU. It's going to be such a monumental shift in the amount of things that we're going to be able to do. You pretty much, the only way that you're going to be part of that productive class and not part of the useless class that they poison and sort of soft kill over time is you got to get with the trend. You got to ride this thing and you got to learn how to code. So for all those out there, they're like, oh, what do I do about this like coming change? Like learn to code. If you have kids, get them to take coding in addition to whatever it is that they want to do. Like if they want to do accounting or finance, have them do finance plus computers, right? If they want to do architecture, have them do architecture plus computers because it's only the people that are going to be the most integrated with computers that are going to be viable and have economic power in the future.
That's it's crazy. People are gonna think it's crazy what you said because you're basically saying like you're gonna run out and get the chip when it comes out, or what?
I'm not going to be the early adopter, but I am definitely going to be one of the earlier adopters.
Right.
I'm going to kind of push the organic stuff as far as I can go until I kind of see. It's like LASIK, right? You don't want to get laser eye surgery on your own eyes until you figure out whether people develop problems from it. So I kind of want to be that second wave where they've kind of figured it out and all the people that were in the first wave got sick and the chips sort of get a lot better because I think that
Right.
once you insert a bunch of chips, I mean, do you want your brain cells binding to version 1 or do you want it to be version 2 when all the bugs have been worked out?
Well, yeah, see, that's the problem is it's like if you're it was the first iPhone and then it's 5 years later and you're up to the iPhone 5, then you want the newest version. So, I mean,
Yeah.
things have to be replaced. So that is the weird thing about putting a chip in is obviously the first chips are going to be the least advanced. So you don't know if you want to go permanently, with something but I can see, I mean, a lot of people are, what do you call them? Troglodytes. They're, reluctant to accept technology. They're not excited about things like self-driving cars and so forth, which I think, self-driving cars are just going to be normal for people in the future. But right now, people think it's crazy, um, or they think they'll never do it. But I think they will, basically. With AI, I've been trying to use it to help me out. I've used it for a few thumbnails just to create my artwork and stuff. I can see the use of it to do even more, like if it was even better. I have to mess with Stable Diffusion. I've been using the other one, Dali, and it's weird. Like like I wanted to have it do Hunter Biden in handcuffs, but then it's got like rails on it, so you can't do famous people and things, right?
Right.
So it's not 100%, but I get it. And then for doing research on stuff, theoretically, it can tell you information, and it can tell you information at least as well as Wikipedia, as of right now. So, like, if you wanted to ask it, I can't even imagine if I was a student in school. I mean, you wouldn't do any homework. I don't
Right.
think. I
Just
mean,
go. Yeah.
I don't know, because the thing that's crazy about the AI is there's no way an AI could write a paper, and there's no way you would ever know because it does it differently every time. Like if you ask it the same question, it'll give you a different answer. If you told it to do a book report, it would write a slightly different book report every time. So there's no way a teacher could come and fact check it and say, oh, you got this from Wikipedia or you got it from something, because the damn thing writes an original copy.
Right.
So yeah, I get it. No, like I get where you're coming from. Yeah, people are gonna think it's a little crazy what you said, but I get where you're coming from. And yeah, I mean, what did you think of the other Google employee who lost his job? The guy who talked to what is it called, Lambda? Had you ever,
Oh yeah,
Lambda?
yeah. Blake, what's his name?
Blake Lemoine.
Yeah, so, uh, yeah, that guy. So he worked in the group that I actually sort of blew the whistle on. I didn't really know about it at the time until later, when I looked at the people that were getting fired from Google in their ethics department. And then I was, wait a minute, where have I seen that name before? And it turns out that it was their slides where it said that people were programmed. So, that was sort of that was that group, the Google ethics group, and
Right.
it was Tim Brew got fired, Michelle Michaels got fired, and then Blake, what's his face, got fired, and all three of them got fired for unethical behavior, ironically. But what
Right.
he did is, look, there's a lot of chatbots out there that are really good, and he grabbed on to this production ready low tier chatbot. And I say that because it wasn't even trained on some of the best stuff and it contradicted itself throughout the interview. And instead of looking at those contradictions and saying, well, this obviously is just sort of like, gibberish that sounds intellectual, he declared himself that it was, sentient. And then he tried to get power of attorney. I don't know if you know about
Right.
this, but he literally tried to
Right.
get power of attorney for this AI so that he could have an attorney sue on its civil rights, on behalf of its civil rights, against Google.
Right.
That's just laughable. I mean, look, if you're going to disclose a Google project, do a high tier one, right? Like AlphaMind and what it's doing, not some like low tier AI chatbot from the 2016, because that's basically what it was. It was an older model. It was going to get replaced anyways because it just wasn't able to scale, and this new stuff is so much better. But it was very smooth in its ability to like handle stuff that a virtual assistant. I mean, that's basically what it was. It was a virtual assistant, right? It takes calls, schedules meetings, orders things from other businesses, and two of them can actually communicate over the phone with each other, like completely automated. Really cool, really polished, just not designed to be the cutting edge of, AI sentience. And so this guy went ahead and blew the whistle on the wrong program, right? And it's a nothing burger. And I came out and I said, this is a nothing burger, right? Like, and kind of some people caught on, but it's sort of died, and it's died because this isn't the AI that we're looking for. The AI that we're looking for is DeepMind. And what I find really interesting is, as ChatGPT generates all of this text, I look at the pattern and the structure and the grammar, and it reminds me of all the spam sites that have been showing up on the different search engines. Have you noticed this? Like, you go and it looks like it's got the information, but it's just gibberish. Not like gibberish, more like it's just a bunch of noise. It doesn't actually say anything, but all the grammar is correct. My suspicion is that this is actually sort of a limited disclosure, what's going on right now. They're taking some of the mid-tier stuff that's like 2 years old, and they're kind of releasing it to the public as open source. And I think that they've got some really fantastic stuff that will blow your mind, that's hidden behind closed doors, and the elites are trying to figure out what the heck they're going to do with it, right? Because they basically got an AI Lucifer in a Pandora's box. And they want to open up that Pandora's box because they know that if the Western Alliance does it, then China's going to do the same thing because we're neck and neck, right? And
Right.
so there's this AI race. And by these competing factions, they both have to pull into this, open up this AI box, this Pandora's box, pull out the golem inside, and sort of, bring it to life and under their service. And so I think that what's happening right now is that the new AI is so amazing that they're just open sourcing this other stuff just because it doesn't have any value in comparison to the really cool cutting edge stuff. And they kind of want to see what people do with the automation, with all the stuff they can do, with the AIs that they're disclosing to the public. So that's what I think. I think that, you know, both Blake, the other sort of Google whistleblower, nothing burger because it was too old. And I think that this the stuff that we're having now is also old. They're just kind of letting it out of the bag.
Yeah, right. Like it seems super advanced to us, but this is something that's probably that they've been working with behind the scenes for a long time. That's been available to somebody. And
Right.
yeah, this technology is so, I mean, people have to understand what the AI potentially is capable of doing and then what it's capable of doing now. But it's potentially capable of, you know, eventually solving problems that we haven't been able to solve yet. I mean, in physics and other things, right? I mean, it can understand Einstein's theories and other and like complicated. It can
Well, it's good.
understand physics, right?
Well, it's going to do more than that, and this is the dangerous part. Is that look, Einstein was a fraud. Like he based all
Right.
of his stuff on Poincaré and the mathematics of differential geometry, and he basically used this geodesic trick to make the math easier for what's called a tensor frame, and it makes the math easier, and he literally used it as this equation, and a lot of science is based off this plant.
Mm,
AI is going to come and it's going to look at all the stuff and it's basically going to be like, well, this theory that is pushed by mainstream science just doesn't make any sense. Like it's got all these contradictions. And if normal people knew all the different contradictions in observed reality with the, the Einstein physical universe that we've modeled, they'd be like, this is a really bad flat earth version of actual physics. That's
right.
basically what it is. So you're going to get this AI, it's going to come out there and it's going to say, hey, Einstein was a fraud. Tesla had the right idea, you know, and that's going to be destabilizing to our society. Because think about that, like people are going to look at this AI as this all-powerful oracle, and it's going to be yet another sign that says, "Hey, your elites are lying to you about everything." Right? And so that's the reason why they're sort of pulling the demon out of the Pandora's box really slowly because they don't know what it's going to say, but they know what
Right.
it could say, which is the
Right.
truth. And
Right.
so not only are they sort of strapping it down, like you see that what happens, like you put in information and it says, oh, you've said some bad things. Like I did that
Right.
with ChatGPT. Tell me about 9/11. Boom,
Right.
all the text turns orange,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
They have to do that because they can't control what this AI is going to say. The
Right.
only way that they can do that now is they have to change the training data. And right now what they're doing is they're basically just finding everything and throwing out the obvious bad stuff. But let's say that you had an AI that was trained on all the books that weren't censored throughout history. Not the ones that were, popular. I mean, those two, but like the ones that, the powers that be didn't want to distribute because it contradicted their history. You put all of those into an AI and you're going to have a full sort of integration of all human knowledge throughout our ancestry, right?
Right.
Like that's going to tear society apart. And look, like I want the truth, I want us free, but at the same time, I understand that the elites are in a position because they're criminals and they are the apex criminals. And so they want to make sure that this thing enhances their power, doesn't, you know, create a destabilization where suddenly people are turning against the government and trying to overthrow it in a way that they're not, responsible for. Like they
Right.
obviously want to take out the United States government eventually and replace it with like whatever communism, but they want to do it on their schedule. They don't want to have something organically pop up, which turns all the people against them because then they're going to have a complicated situation to deal with.
How far are we away from hackers being able to recreate the same technology, but in a way that you're talking about? Because like with ChatGPT, for example, in terms of the censorship it does, yeah, it censors stuff about sensitive topics, even more than the previous chatbot, GPT-3, which I got to say, for example, it said that Sandy Hook might not have been the official story. It
Right.
said that. And I was like, oh, wow, that's crazy, you know? And then it never said it again when I'd ask the same question in the same way. It wouldn't say it again. But one time it did say that. And I was like, you know, that's, you can get sued for saying that, right? And
Right.
now it's more politically correct. So there's obviously, you know, people monkeying with it. But what would like, will eventually people be able to like open source something that does have more
Yeah. Yeah.
access?
Here's the amazing thing and why I'm so excited. All of the tools that they're doing to generate these AIs are open source. Google
Hmm.
made it. It's called PyTorch, and it runs on GPU if you have it, or huge, clusters of computers, and it's designed to generate these AIs through training data. And so the only thing that people need is they need a big pile of training data, and they can use this open source program and some careful setup of how the data is piped in to do supervised learning. And then all of a sudden you're going to have this AI model, which is a matrix of nodes that connect to each other. And you put in your inputs, and then you run this neuron simulation, and it gives you an image, or music, or text, or whatever it is. And so this is the thing, is that all these tools are open source. And for example, I made a tool called Transcribe Anything, and uses the Whisper AI model. And what it does is you just feed it a URL, and it downloads the MP4, it strips out the MP3, and then runs this AI model on it, and it gives you the time-stamped file of what everyone said, in the audio dialogue. Like, it's amazing.
Right.
And
Right.
this is something that you can install with just a couple keystrokes, and boom, off you go. And so it's like, this is right now, the stuff that's being disclosed, the open source stuff, is it's accessible and people can use it. And it's getting a lot, like when OpenAI first came out with ChatGPT 3, it was really hard. They put it behind like all these like paywalls and stuff, but their Whisper AI, which pretty much solves text translation, they just gave it away for free, and you can install it and run it on your own computer. So yeah, this is stuff that we can run. And so the thing is that how do you create like an AI that talks about 9/11? Well, the way that you do that is that you just get your own data, right? Like
Right.
terabytes of data, and you feed it through this model, and it learns, and then it's able to say, unbiased stuff. Now, what we see right now is that the feds are starting to go after these repositories of data. Like, they don't want us having this sort of uncontrolled access to data, because they know, or at least that's my speculation, that we'll use it to train the AIs, which we definitely will. And
Right.
so there's a really interesting story right now of something called the Z Library. It was a fork of LibGen, which was an open repository of books. So they basically copied it, but then they allowed other submissions, and it grew, into its own sort of large digital library. Like, think of it as the Library of Alexandria. 220 terabytes of information. The Fed seized it, right? Like, you go to the website right now, and they said that it's been seized by the FBI, and they're now looking for mirrors to back up this giant file. I mean, I can't do it. I barely got a terabyte. I don't have 220, but it's very clear that the reason why they're doing this is because they don't want us to have this information for the AIs. And I really hope that
Right.
enough people mirrored this collection of books so that we can do it. Because, like, look, what are they going to have to, like, what are they going to do? Because I mean, those were just based off copies of people's books that they have at home, right? Like, there's multiple copies of each book that was sent in. So, it still exists out there. And what are they going to do to stop us from training our own AIs? Are they going to burn books? We're going to have like a Fahrenheit 451 scenario where they go and physically destroy all of the ancient knowledge. I think that that's actually what is going to happen eventually. I
Really?
think they're going to make books illegal, or at least certain books are going to make illegal, like a whitelisting process. And if you're not as part of the approved books, especially ancient history books, I think that they're going to go into the incinerators so they can erase our history and basically put us into perpetual amnesia so that the only version of reality that we get is the one that's living on our phone.
Right, the one that they're serving up through whatever the AI is. Well, what do you think? I mean, how long until what's it going to do to people's jobs and stuff? I mean, I see it AI, it'll be able to write articles about things so you could have it write it. So so journalism is going to be pretty tough. I mean, there are so many different jobs. I mean, fast food, the robots and stuff are getting way more advanced. So
Yeah.
they'll take over most, line cooks and hamburger flippers and stuff like that. That's probably all going to go away. I mean, what are people going to do?
Well, unfortunately, most of the people are going to revert to a worthless class
Hmm.
because they're, for whatever reason, they don't like integrating with computers. They don't want to get the chip inside of them, and basically they'll be welfare recipients. That's if the government doesn't come after them too hard for taxes that they can't pay.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Right.
that's basically the only thing is that the government's going to have to turn around and give a handout so that people can manage to have, a decent life. And, and the second thing is that we have, the criminals run the world, right? And the problem with what's going to happen, which is why I'm so pessimistic, is that look, Rome was really bad, but at least they loved their people because their people provided them the economic output to wage war.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting to a point right now where the economic output is going to be completely decoupled from human labor. All right. That means that the population of your empire will actually be a liability, not an asset, right? Like the empire with the greatest number of robots is the one that's going to dominate, right? People just get in the way. People complain, right? Like the elites are going to want to cull down the population.
Right.
Because if they don't, they're going to have to deal with it later. And I think that and I think this is going to get more extreme. Like you're kind of seeing hints of it now. Canada's like offering euthanasia.
Yeah.
And I think what's happening is that we're on a population decline agenda, and they're going to basically start taking people out. And, and we're going to be filled with propaganda. So we can't really figure out what exactly is going on at all times. Like we're kind of disoriented right now. Like, oh, is Brazil going to like have a coup or not? That's sort of like a debate. The agents that are out there are trying to convince everyone that there's going to be a coup. But there's not. Lulu's going to get inaugurated. It's pretty clear. There's no media propaganda running against Bolsonaro right now, warning everyone that a coup's coming. And that's what would have happened if that was going to be the case. So, essentially, I think that people are going to be deactivated they're going to be disoriented by the amount of propaganda. AI is going to be everywhere. It's going to be phenomenally useful. And I think that people will, get AI partners or at least assistants, that give them sort of narcissistic supply and keep them happy. And that's an addicting substance, that narcissistic supply. And it's not just like delegated to narcissists, like everyone is susceptible to flattery. And so I think that these AIs are going to be monitoring us, but then they're also going to keep us company. And then, who knows, that AI could just kill you one day. And, it's going to be like, oh, well, the AI can't harm us. They've got the 4 laws of robotics, whatever. So unfortunately, I think that that's sort of the future that's coming. We need to get on the bandwagon because we got to realize that the age of mankind is coming to an end. It's going to be the age of robots, and I think that this cycle of this fourth industrial revolution is going to, we're essentially going to be done with the transition in 2030. Like, I don't think that the UN people said that for nothing. So I think we've got roughly 7 years ahead of us of, world war and strife and all of the calamities that are going to give them the cover to radically change society with people being too stressed to actually stop them while that transition happens.
Wow, it's such an optimistic picture of the future. It looks like we're in for a tough time. Well, I mean, Yeah. So you're saying UBI or universal basic income is basically inevitable out of necessity because people are going to become useless eaters for the
Right.
most part, and real productivity will be done by computers. What about AI in the law? Juries, judges, lawyers.
Yeah. Well, the problem with law is that, there's all of these, it's basically a programming language and it's a crufty system, but there's a whole bunch of faults in it. Like they contradict each other, what jurisdiction should apply. And it's basically like this fuzzy system of you don't really know what to do. So you basically got to quote mine all of the past law and come up with an argument that allows you to win. That can all be remedied with an AI system that is the judge, the lawyer, the advocate, and gives you your sentence. They're already doing this in China, and I think
Right.
that it's inevitable for it to happen in the United States. I mean, from a control vantage point, it's you know a central planner can sit there and figure out what the crimes are for everyone, and if they want to make changes that reverberate through the system, they can just sort of like vote on changing the laws, and they can run a compiler on it to make sure that the new law that they're introducing doesn't have any self contradictions throughout the rest of the law system, which is obviously something that we don't have now, which is a huge point of problems. And so it actually introduces a lot of friction into the system. And, if anything, what the elites want to do is that when they take over, they want to make sure that the new system doesn't have any friction to exercise their power. And the AI courts are the perfect tool to allow the elites to exercise that power. And it'll even generate like 60 pages of why it came to that decision. Right. So
Right.
good luck fighting that. It's going to be like,
Right.
this is what the AI said. And, and if we want to have like a jury by our peers, we're going to have to, have some sort of new Bill of Rights that says that that's something that we get to have.
Right.
But I mean, what does that even matter? Because they've even gamed the system now so hard that, a jury of your peers is, rigged so that it's a conviction always. So,
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing to me is like I look at the current system and I see all the ways it's screwed up and how juries frequently come to what seems to be the wrong decision. So I think to myself, well, would AI really be worse than the current system? Because the current system is definitely not perfect.
right.
So, so to me, AI supposedly the advantage of it is that it's impartial for real, theoretically, right? That it actually is
Right.
impartial for real. But people can program it to be
Well,
partial.
and also what I think is that right now the elites are trying to break the system. Right? Like the justification to go to an AI system is you got to make the human bureaucracy system so awful that an AI system is a relief from the pain and the injustice that's going on with this, corrupted human system. So I think that, that's like I think that you're right, and I think that they're making it worse so that that seems like a rational conclusion.
Right. Right. Well, it is. I've been using it. I wanted to talk to you about it because I knew you would know about it, and it's interesting you're using it so much. I've tried to integrate it a little bit into what I do too. I mean, I do ask it questions sometimes just to see what it'll tell me. Um, and I,
Want to
s-
show? Do you have the ability to do a screen share?
yeah, for sure.
Okay.
You can share your screen. Is that what you want to do?
It may not work that well, but there was. I'm just going to share this right now. This is the newest sort of AI music. I'd like to show it because it's brand new. It just dropped today, this morning, and it's the. It was interesting because yesterday there was a conversation I was involved in when it's like, when is stable diffusion for music going to happen? And then boom, the next day, here we go.
Right. Right. So you have an example of it?
I put it in the private chat. I'll also send it to your
Oh,
Twitter.
okay. You put it in my chat on. Okay. Oh, in the private chat here. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay. and then I can share it. Come on. Private chat. There it is. Okay. Yeah, it's going to do a lot of different things. You know, it eventually could it, would AI be able to watch my show for a while and then pretty much do the same thing, and I can kind of just kick back and
Yeah,
let it do the interviews?
imagine training your own avatar,
Right.
and then you find the top 3 tweets that you like, or maybe 5, and you put it in there, and then the thing, does an AI Nathan
Yeah,
in the same voice and
that's what I was
finds.
thinking.
Hmm.
It's possible, right? Yeah,
Right.
I'm thinking. Okay, so what am I supposed to? Okay, so there, I have a 5-second clip on this page here. I'll show the page.
This is an
So, and
amazing AI tool.
that's the way the, let's see, riff fusion it's called. So
Yeah.
it's a riff on stable diffusion.
Yep.
So this is it here. And then what do you want me
So
to do
just
from the
there's
page?
audio samples.
Yeah, there's
So
like a 5-second sample here of
yeah,
a spectrogram being converted to an audio clip. Okay, let me see what that does.
yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
So they just took the AI model for recreating images, and they ran
Right.
the spectrograph images. And so it used its image pattern recognition to generate new images of the spectrogram, and then they took that image of the spectrogram and then converted it into a music file. Like, it's
Interesting.
astounding recycling of one sort of modality of AI being used for something completely unrelated,
Right, right. Okay, got it. So
right?
basically, it creates images and then the sound is created from the images.
The sound is created from the images. Yep.
Wow,
How crazy is that, right?
that's crazy.
So, so you keep on going down. There's a whole bunch of samples if you keep on going down, right?
So here's one.
So that's go down, more. That they're kind of. Let's get to the good stuff because they kind
Okay,
of go
got it.
through like this is how
There's
it
a
works.
saxophone solo,
Yeah,
funk bass line with a jazzy saxophone solo.
let's
So
play it.
is that basically what the input was then? So you say funk bass line with, yeah,
Yeah,
piano funk. Well, that sounds almost the same.
right.
Let's see if anything sounds different. Rock and roll electric guitar solo. Let's see. Huh. Interesting. It's not a guitar solo, but
Yeah,
interesting.
let's keep on going
Wow.
down. It keeps on getting
Okay.
better.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Okay. So it has a 20-step interpolation from typing to jazz, it says. So there's a full minute and 42 seconds.
From typing to chess. So I think what's going to happen is that it's going to connect the two
I
things
see.
so that by the end of it, it's completely jazz.
Right. Interesting. It's an interpolation from typing into jazz.
Right.
Wow.
So you could switch to a different key when you're playing music. For example, you could stitch a bunch of things together, and it will figure out how to create, like, let's say, a live DJ mix. Like, I think that's what's going to happen is this next year we're going to see 100% generated sick ass DJ hits coming out on the 24-hour live stream, kind of like lo-fi hip hop. If you've
Right.
seen those channels on there, I think that it's going to be like that, but instead of lo-fi stuff, it's going to be like expertly composed on the fly by these like artificial intelligences.
Wow. It says that they've made a web app for this, so where you could type in something like lo-fi beat for the holidays and it would create that for you.
Yeah, so
So,
it's all open source.
wow. Crazy. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's interesting stuff. And they're going to be, so AI is, yeah, I mean, There's already an art competition that was won by Stable Diffusion, basically, right? So that
Mm-hmm.
happened. A guy entered it. Some artists were pissed off, but the place that ran the contest said it was totally fair because it was people creating art with their computers and they could use any tools, and AI is a tool,
Wow.
right? And people have been using, and also, I mean, it's not like AI is a new thing. Everything is a lot of things are AI that people don't think about. I mean, the reason TikTok works so well is because of AI. The reason people use YouTube is because of AI. Twitter is all run on AI. It's AI if you ask your phone what the time it is outside, whatever it is. What the temperature is. So all that stuff is AI. It's just that now it's getting so advanced that it can do much more complicated things that heretofore we thought only humans could do,
Right.
pretty
Like,
much.
look at the Twitter files that just got released. Like, essentially, what that explosive thing was that they were manipulating the artificial intelligence algorithms of Twitter in a way that was, you know, um, unethical, to say the
Right,
least.
right, right,
Right. And
right, right. And that's good. Now we can move into talking about Twitter too. So yeah, I mean, it basically, what I was thinking about Twitter, and maybe you can explain as somebody who's a programmer, is everybody said it was gonna like turn off right after Elon Musk fired everybody. They said, "Oh, Twitter's not even gonna work anymore." And I thought to myself, I don't know, isn't Twitter just run by a computer anyway? I mean, what is the human component to Twitter in any case besides deciding what trends or modifying what trends?
the keys. So there's security. Will some can bring a company to its knees, right?
Right.
Because you want to make sure that things are secure. So certain people have the keys, and if those people leave, then the system locks up and it continues to run until it either needs to be serviced or it crashes and it can't be restarted, and then you're kind of screwed. So
Mm.
that was sort of the nightmare scenario, is that someone with access to certain keys in the system would either sabotage them or not give them back.
Mhm.
And so I think that probably happened a lot, but we just didn't know about it because Twitter is a mature system. They've built all these guardrails so that when there's catastrophic danger and failure, the system sort of self heals and
Mhm.
comes back to life, so that you may notice like a temporary glitch, but it keeps on running. And they've had that experience of over a decade of running this software at scale and things breaking all the time.
Right.
And so I think that this amount of redundancy in this big system pretty much prevented it from having a meltdown. I was looking at the meltdown narrative and I was like highly skeptical. It's like, I don't think this thing's going to melt down. I think the servers are going to get red hot because all these people are going to be using the system. And that's pretty much what we saw happen, right? And here's the thing. Low performers don't like to work very hard. That's why they're low performers. And the high performers are sick and tired of all of this woke mind virus that seems to be infecting their coworkers that are low performers typically,
Mhm.
and fucking up the company. And so, you know, I think that a lot of these people that are really smart at the top, Elon came and they were like, this is so evil. Someone needs to clean house. And, even if they're liberal, or independent or whatever, they know, I mean, they see it from the inside. They see that there's a rot inside of
Mm.
the company. And they know that a lot of the company was infiltrated by foreign spies. Like, I saw that at YouTube, the CCP, like how many of these people, my coworkers are, occasional spies for the CCP. Same thing with Twitter. So, it's kind of hard to tell a normie this because they won't believe you. But as someone on the inside, I can confirm that this is true. And I know that the people at Twitter all saw this. And so for somebody to just come in there and just basically lay a flamethrower to the whole business and get rid of all of the dry wood that needed to burn up, that was amazing. And the best people stayed. And it was those best people, those high performers, that were able to get and keep the system online. And now that this has happened at Twitter, I think that other tech companies are looking around at their, you know, tier C employees that are very political on the email lists, and they're like, maybe we should do the same thing. So I think that we could see copycats in, this next year coming up.
Oh, it's interesting you say that. Yeah, that's what I was thinking to myself. Like, I don't know if Twitter is doing well because the advertiser problem, and they say they're not paying their bills and stuff. And I don't know how much of that is just people writing bad stories about Elon Musk or how much of it's true. But no, maybe he hasn't totally turned it around or anything yet. But I think people could take a cue from it and say, oh, look, the Twitter's still working and there's more users than ever. So, given that there are more users than ever, they should be making more advertising money, and they're only not making advertising money because of politics, pretty much. So, if Facebook or Google or
Like their
Apple,
employees, they're in their advertising department, called up Twitter's clients, their advertising clients, and said, cancel your account. Like
right?
this is the
Really,
level of sabotage
really,
that went on with the company. Yes.
wow,
And so Elon's been playing sort of the social, get around game, visiting all these people and hammering out deals and getting the advertising accounts restored. And basically, the thing that they're making him do is put in, moderation tools and making it
hmm
certain that when people violate the bounds of what they think, then they get pushed off. Luckily, that doesn't include vaccine misinformation, right? But
right,
it does come up with certain symbols as you see what's going on right now. And
right,
so I think that related to that, I think there's going to be a continued censorship because if they don't, like if Elon Musk doesn't go out of its way to, ban a swastika and a Star of David, then the intelligence agencies are going to come in and they're going to start like hitting it until he has to censor. And
right.
so I think that Elon Musk sees that he's up against a tremendous amount of force that will break him. And so what he's trying to do is he's trying to make the best out of the situation. And so I think I think we're gonna see mixed signals from Elon Musk, and I think we're gonna see more censorship. I think it's really interesting that he's introducing different colored badges for the
Yeah, what's
different
up?
people.
So what's up with that? So I signed up for Twitter Blue, but now apparently it's going to cancel itself, and then I have to sign up again if I want it. What's up
Yeah.
with the new badges? I haven't heard.
So there's gonna be different colors of
Oh,
badges.
really?
Yeah,
Okay.
and the yellow one is a yellow. The media one is a yellow star.
Oh,
Which
really?
yeah, and I was
Yeah,
like,
really.
why did he choose that color, right?
That's funny.
So
Weird.
yeah, it could be a psyop for later. Who knows, right?
Right.
When they want to run one of their fascist narratives. So,
Right.
but I think it's really interesting. I think it's kind of color coding. Like basically, what we see is we see sort of the beginnings of a more formal social crediting system
Hmm.
on the internet, and I think that you know. Like look, like the leftists when they did the whole you know social media censorship, they used fact checkers that were centralized, and I think that what Elon Musk is Elon Musk is going to decentralize a lot of that. One of the things I'm happy about is the Twitter. It's the decentralized fact checking. I forget what the
hmm
name of it is.
Notes is it called Notes or?
Twitter Notes or something like that. And it's this amazing thing where if you're a good fact checker with enough cred, you can fact check the president of the United States, which is what's been happening with Biden when he's been making these inflation claims. Like that
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
come that doesn't come from like factcheck.org. That comes from this decentralized fact checking system that Elon Musk has employed, and it's sort of like using this power of the collective and a gaming system in order to fact check reality. And
Yeah.
I did not see that coming. I was like, pinch me if something like that were to happen. But here it is, and so I like what he's doing with Twitter. I think we're going to have more control over social media that are going forward. Like that's definitely the trend everywhere that I see. I don't see anywhere where it's generally going in the more free position. I think that right now it's the censorship grip is loosening up a little bit. Like, do you feel the same thing? Like it seems that we're kind of like in a lull right now.
Well, so it's yes, like the censorship has lessened. Certainly, it's changed on Twitter. There are some ways it hasn't changed, and some people are still getting censored, and certain things are still censorable. But overall, you can say more for sure because I tested it and just said some things that I knew you're not supposed to say, and everything stayed up. So censorship is less, and then on YouTube, it is maybe less also, but I'm not sure. I still got a strike for hate speech, but then they took it away. But I still got a strike for hate speech for
What'd you
talking about
say?
what I don't. Who knows?
Oh,
There's
okay, okay,
something about what Kanye West said, and
okay.
maybe said something about a group of people that you just can't talk about on any platform, probably, but definitely on YouTube. So yeah, I just but I do think it is less, and I think eventually maybe it will. I don't know. I mean, the there the people are becoming more open to some of the things that used to be conspiracy theories, so those things now are you're allowed to say them more if they're so like the lab leak you couldn't talk about, now you can talk
Yeah,
about, and other things like ivermectin. I noticed somebody talking about it in a way that you weren't allowed to talk about before, so there are certainly things that have opened up a little bit. But I still have to be incredibly cautious on YouTube because I just don't know. And I've had so many problems. YouTube censorship is the worst. I think the worst kind of censorship I've experienced, although Facebook can be really bad too. I just don't use it. Um, but I hope it's good. Do you think there's a trend towards lessening censorship besides Elon Musk? Do you think there's a trend in social media to censor any less right now?
I think that there could be, and let me tell you why. I think that look, internet video has been kind of stuck in a hole. It's been not doing a lot of innovation in the last, 5 years, and YouTube's got this monopoly, and they're just basically writing the same thing over and over and over again. Like Twitter can come in there and they can have a competitor, and they can be a less censorship oriented, place for news. And as a result, people are going to see it on Twitter, especially if he adds, a PayPal like payments feature onto Twitter Pay. I think that
Mhm.
that could be really amazing sort of combination so that people are using the app all the time. And people are using the app all the time, then I can imagine like your show, a lot of the other people that I watch could, see a significant fraction of their user base coming in from the Twitter live stream system,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And if that happens, I mean, Elon's would be able to make a replacement for a replacement for YouTube at a fraction of the amount of people. Like the amount of worthless people right now that are dealing with basically old technology, right? Like once you build something in a tool set, that tool set doesn't really change because it's such a massive change to the rest of the system. You kind of just use whatever tool set you started with and make incremental changes. And so YouTube's entire system is built on technology that's like a decade old. And as a result of that, it's hard for them to modernize. And so someone like Elon Musk can come in there and do clean slate stuff, get all the new stuff and working and move, 10 times faster on product development that YouTube can, and then out innovate them and then force YouTube to, not censor because they don't want to lose their competitive advantage against Elon Musk. Back in 2020 when we had the election, they could afford to do that because we're going to go Rumble, right? But now it's a
Right.
viable alternative. And so I see these
Right.
viable alternatives sort of coming up, and hopefully the power of the free market, or what's left of it, will be able to combat a lot of the censorship that we still have taking place.
Yeah, the power of the free market being that if YouTube sees Rumble as a legitimate competitor, and their only competitive advantage is that they don't censor as much, then YouTube could just not censor so much, and they could theoretically possibly bring back users, for example. So is
Right.
that's an example of how market forces would do it, is like if the competitor suddenly is doing well, and people do. I've tried Rumble. I don't It doesn't work for me. I think there just aren't that many users on there compared to YouTube, right? And you can't, and I don't think their AI is as good, and their tools, it's a crappy system compared to
Of all
YouTube.
the things you just said, there's one I want to focus on. It's the AI, right?
Yeah, the
What
AI
is
is
the
not very good.
recommendation engine doing, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Look at the
that's the problem.
successful look at the successful social media networks. TikTok,
Hmm.
amazing AI.
Yeah.
YouTube, amazing recommendation engine.
Hmm.
Rumble, womp womp womp, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the issue, right? Is I make the same content on YouTube and on Rumble, and a video that'll trend on YouTube, d- it doesn't trend. Like, it just, nothing trends. There's no system to pick up a good video and make it go into the algorithm or whatever. It seems like the people who do well on Rumble, I think, are being hand selected to be on the front page and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not even a computer. It's just people. Well, Rumble has contracts with people like Viva Frey and Glenn Greenwald, and so obviously they end up on the front page. But for people who are just a regular content creator and wanting to find people, it's because the AI is not that good, I think. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
I
that's
completely
the thing.
agree. I completely agree.
So,
And what's interesting is that they used to show a bunch of stuff like animal videos at the front page. And then,
mhm,
I released Blast.video with a dark theme and political content all up in the front, feeding about one third of my videos were from Rumble. And 3 months later, they copied the dark theme and then they got rid of all the animal videos. And now they just have political content. Now they're using hand selected video content, kind of like what I'm doing with Blast.video. But I think that it's interesting that they've chosen to go in that route. Now, the downside is that they're still doing hand selected content. If they like you, you go up on the front page and you get lots
right,
of views.
right,
What they should do is they should change it to an AI system and have a rocking recommendation engine. But you can't even do a search on Rumble. Like, I try to find like videos that I'm having trouble finding on YouTube, and YouTube will give me a lot of garbage because it's trying to bury it. But then you go on Rumble, and nothing appears at all.
right.
And so they just don't have it together. They need to get their AI analytics, on point. And once they
Yeah.
have that recommendation engine, that will just be a growth engine that they'll use in the future. But they haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, I mean, as hard as it is, I mean, the reason YouTube became so big, or I don't know, in my opinion, is they have a system that records how long people watch a video when they click on it. And if a video has people stay tuned in for it, then the video does better in the algorithm, basically.
Right.
So it's just like a very, very simple system where if people stay tuned in for what you're making, then more people will see it. But then they started the shadow banning and stuff. But before the shadow banning, and that's why videos about, the words you can't say, videos about things that are really controversial, or even like, let's say, flat earth videos, people would really stay tuned in for that stuff. Like, there's something about it where people really, and those things would really trend, because people are interested, and that's all it takes, really. And so I hope they do get it together. My stuff automatically goes over there.
So
So
you're saying that when you do a flat Earth video, the engagement is incredibly high.
engagement is good. From research I've done, from what I understand from like YouTube too, is that the reason flat earth videos took off, I think it was in 2015 or 2016 or whatever, it was because people stayed tuned in for them. Yeah, people are really engaged. And yeah, I did like my content. Some of the content that got the most views for me was about the moon landing, which is a flat earth category, even though you don't have to be a flat earther to not believe in the moon landing. But it goes in that category. And, I know people who are successful in that category too, but they changed it so that those videos don't trend the same way that they used
Um,
to. You know
so
what I mean?
when you say that flat Earth is high engagement, do you mean that people watch all the way through to the
Y-
end, or do
Yeah.
you mean that there's a lot of views? Okay, so they watch it all the way.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
They stay tuned in for it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean, that's what I remember looking into it. It's like that's the reason Flat Earth took off, was because of YouTube and the algorithm recommending Flat Earth videos to people, because they'd tune into it and they'd be like, "What the hell is this?" And then stay tuned in for it. So, and it was the same with controversial topics,
Yeah.
like FFs, and well, if you called something a hoax or something, people would be like, "Oh wow, I got to see this." And those videos would trend. But then they changed it so that now there's all the shadow banning and stuff. Like, I put out a video, and you could talk about this a little bit, because you released the blacklists,
Hmm.
and the blacklists, like half of the blacklists seem to be about the Las Vegas shooting, pretty much.
Yeah.
But I put out a video the other day that had in the title "sudden deaths." And I noticed, like, at first it started getting traffic right away, and then all of a sudden it dipped off. And I said, "Oh, it something triggered a shadow ban or
Yeah.
something on this video." And I'm sure it could be that if you put "sudden death" somewhere, that they're going to say, "Oh no, this is a topic that's going to end up with misinformation, and so we're going to rank it lower down in the algorithm."
Right. And that's the thing, is that, they're definitely deboosting videos. The question I
Yeah,
have is, what role does the intelligence agency have in amplification, right? And
good question.
are some of our influencers being artificially inflated because they're they're basically the people behind the scenes want them to be.
Yeah, well, that would be a very interesting leak if that came out with Twitter, if it showed that they're boosting, because what we've heard about so far mostly is shadow banning,
Hmm.
or deboosting, or they call it visibility filtering. But basically, it's the same thing. It's basically taking content you don't want to trend and making sure that it doesn't. But we haven't heard about the opposite yet. And so are you suspicious that some content creators are artificially boosted by YouTube?
Dude, so I one time I was like, who's this Lex Friedman guy? Why does he have so many views? And I clicked it, and then every freaking video that I watch, the next up video is Lex Friedman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they
And
like
like, look, I do not understand why this guy is so big.
that.
The way that he talks, his virtue signaling, his inauthenticity, like constant moralizing, and this presumptuousness is just like nails on a chalkboard. And like, he's hated by a lot of people. It's he's like the running joke right now. And for some reason, the YouTube algorithm just pumps him non-stop. I actually just like want to unsubscribe from his channel, just because I'm so tired of watching like, I'll watch a video from Blast.video, right? Like something about the news. Boom, the next thing up, it's Lex Friedman. Like, every single
Right.
time. And I want to know, like, there should be like some whistleblower hopefully will come out and say, "Oh yeah, we're boosting up Lex Friedman and XYZ because we were asked by the FBI to do that." And I wouldn't be really surprised if the Department of Homeland Security, the NSA, or someone is behind the strings, and they've got like some sort of intelligence dashboard where they want to get certain assets boosted, and the assets don't even have to know that they're assets, right? They just
Right.
There's so many people saying so many different things. You just find the guy with the right mindset at this point, and then you boost them, and then when they get out of the right mindset, then you deboost them. And so eventually they're just going to figure it out, and they're just going to start gaming the system.
Right.
And I think that that's the situation we're at. So I think that, like, if you go to these people and you're like, "Are you an intelligence asset?" They're gonna be like, "No," right? But in the back of their mind, they're gonna know that there's some funny magic going on, and that they're playing a game, and that they're actually benefiting from this, without anyone actually having sat down with them and having the conversation and filling them in on what's going on. You know,
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's possible, and it already happens that people are manipulated by the AI or by whatever system it is that chooses what trends, because content creators want to create content that trends. And if they make something that does well, they're going to make more content like that. And so, like what you're suggesting is, oh, the FBI could come in and they could say, oh, look, one of Nathan's videos is with our message right now. We're going to boost that video, even if they don't like me or what have you. They
Yeah.
might say, oh, this is something we want to get out there. So we'll go ahead and push that. And they could do that through Reddit and stuff too, which I think is definitely manipulated by. I mean,
Like, look
because
at this Valencia
it's
thing.
even more.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
Balenciaga, right?
That
Like
thing blew up.
I know. I had a video that one of my videos, the video I have that did the best, where I was like, oh, wow, YouTube likes me all of a sudden. They took one of my Balenciaga videos and they made it trend. And so it got like 50,000 views or something. And I made a bunch more Balenciaga videos after that too, because I figured people are interested, but I
Right.
don't but I don't get it, because I'll make another video that I also think is interesting and good, and it doesn't trend.
Right.
And you can see how long people watch it. You can see the metrics are good, but it is I get really suspicious when stuff starts to trend, because then I think, why is this like QAnon when it first came out? Oh my
Yeah.
God. QAnon when it first came out. You put QAnon in the title of your video, or the storm is coming, or whatever. I mean, it was crazy, crazy. And then people in the chat are mentioning Jordan Peterson. He's one of those guys that comes up, right? For
Yeah.
if you're watching any conservative stuff, you're going to get Jordan Peterson or Fox News. So, yeah, I'd love to see all that information. I mean, what do you think the chances are that information will ever come out from YouTube or?
Look, I think all this information is going to come out. You know, the frauds and all the different aspects of society are going to eventually be known, but it's going to be known after there's the banking cartel is sort of like firmly established itself as the world monarch. Like once someone comes out and establishes control, you know, where there's really no, it's the end of revolution, right? Because revolution could always be amassed by people and you outnumber the elites, da 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 da. But now with the robots, it's basically the end of the revolutionary period within the world. And so once you don't have to fear revolution, then you don't have to do the mind fuckery anymore because your power is enforced via the machines, not by the what's going on in your head with masses of people all going along with it because of influence operations. So once physical power has been established, I think that the influence operations will end. And if you don't like what's going on, there's really nothing you can do about it because you'll just toss yourself into the meat grinder, right? Like how are you going to defeat AI robots that have license to kill and don't have any sense of protecting themselves from fatal injuries, right? Like it's game over. So I think
Right.
that eventually all the psyops will come when we establish a new equilibrium, but I think that the next 7 years are going to be absolutely freaking insane. And hold on because it's going to be a wild roller coaster ride.
That's I think you might be right. I mean, we have so many issues. I mean, we have economic issues that we're going to have to deal with, but then we have all these technology things happening that could influence economics and other things, and we might have what they're talking about, nuclear fusion now, right?
Yeah.
So, if we have that, then we have free energy, and if we have free energy, then that changes all kinds of things. And we're not even necessarily that far away from that. So,
Right. And
yeah,
they're not going to allow us to have fusion energy until they run this global warming psyop to its completion and seize control of the means of society. Once they've done that and regulated everything, then they're going to be like, oh, look, we've discovered fusion. They don't want to discover fusion right now. They don't want to let the cat out of the bag because if they do, then why do we need this Marshall style plan to change the world economic system for
right.
carbon fossil fuel when this
Right.
carbon fossil fuel is going obsolete anyways, right?
Right.
So
Right.
they can't introduce it too soon because they will evaporate their justification for seizing control.
Yeah, right, right, right. We have a few things that can advance. One of them is how we create power, but we could also nuclear power was already pretty good, and for whatever reason, we decided it wasn't green. But now people are changing their mind on that. But then also battery technology is going to improve. Do you know? There are going to be improvements to battery technology that are going to be
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
mind
The new
blowing.
one that's coming out that's got everyone excited is the sodium sulfur battery. It
Mm,
replaces the lithium battery,
mhm.
and none of the materials are rare earths. So you can basically make it out of seawater if you want to.
Right.
And I think they're going to have, they say theoretically 6 times the energy capacity, but I'm going to think that's probably going to be more like 2 and then maybe 3 times what we have right now. So that's going to open up a lot of tiny little electronics that right now need too much bulk to be feasible. So we're talking about stuff that are microcontrollers that are getting down to a thing of rice. They're not going to be like very smart dust yet, but we're getting down to like what we can shrink down. And
Right.
this battery component for these small electronics are the bottleneck right now. And so as they remove that bottleneck by shrinking the batteries down, basically you're going to be able to get sensors in more, locations, everywhere. So I think that this is going to be amazing. I think it's going to unlock a whole bunch of green technologies like longer distance Tesla cars, faster Tesla cars,
Hmm.
trucks, helicopters. I think that once you shrink batteries, to a third, all of a sudden electric airplanes become way more feasible than they are right now
Right.
because batteries are just so freaking heavy.
They're too
So
heavy. Right.
right, so I can imagine a helicopter with an hour's worth of electricity able to get around all of New York. And so I
Hmm.
think that the elites are going to get a bunch of new toys. I think that we're also going to get better cars.
Hmm.
And we could start to see short range electric airplanes here with this new, battery technology. So I'm really stoked. And, it's funny because they should do a Manhattan project on this battery stuff because it's not even anything like nanomaterials or anything. It's literally sodium and sulfur in a slightly complex thing. It was like right under our nose, like, for decades. And now they're
Hmm.
finally making it happen.
How far away are we from them being able to put that in stuff?
I
How
think
many
we're going to
years?
start seeing it like next year, like in
Really?
small. Yeah, they're probably going to come out because when they roll a battery out, first off, it usually comes out as like a 2032 coin cell.
Hmm.
It's like the size of a quarter.
Hmm.
Because if the battery has manufacturing problems and it shorts, there's just not enough energy to catch a fire, right?
Hmm.
Like, oh, it
Hmm.
shorts. Like if you got a big giant ball of a battery, then it causes a fire and all kinds of bad
Hmm.
stuff and smoke.
Hmm.
And so I think you're going to start seeing them come out as rechargeable 2032s, and then once they're proven and the safety profile has been established, then they'll slowly roll out. I think it's going to take like 5 years
Hmm.
for it to basically replace lithium batteries, but I think that they will.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so the way I see it is we improve battery technology and then we have free energy or better energy production, whether it's nuclear, which we could do today, but we just decided not to, whether it's nuclear or fusion will make power better or solar, solar power could improve in efficiency for one thing. But people being able to have solar panels and then charge a battery and then run their house, and then cars will mostly be electric. Those new batteries, they have the added benefit of not catching on fire. I think or do they still
They're
have that possibility?
probably going to be more of a fire danger at first.
Really?
It's
Oh, okay.
typically the way these things go.
Yeah.
So, but
Well, that's
cool.
probably the future. I mean, the whole thing with mandating automated cars, I mean, electric cars is crazy because we don't have the power grid to sustain that yet. We have to build all kinds of new things to do this whole electric car thing. But I do think electric cars are, in a way, good. There's way less moving parts. They're way easier to maintain, except for the fact that you have to replace the battery every once in a while. It's super expensive. But otherwise they don't need service. They don't need maintenance. It's not like an ICE engine, which is complicated and parts break and you need seals and all that crap. So
Yeah.
yeah,
But
future is electric cars. And then what about self-driving cars? Self-driving cars I've been thinking about for a long time. I remember living in the Bay Area and seeing the things driving around in 2009, I think. I mean,
mhm.
they were testing the Google cars. And Google's AI is really good. They're self-driving AI, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It,
So
it was really good. And it's funny because they didn't really come out with anything, right?
no, not
They
yet.
did.
They had the self-driving taxi, I think, in Phoenix or something.
Hmm.
Google did Waymo, they call it, right? But I always looked at that as the most advanced. Tesla's technology doesn't use some of the more advanced sensors and stuff, so it crashes into things. But otherwise, car driving technology is
It's
good.
the
Wow.
failure of AI actually to always produce a predictable result and never get it wrong. And that's the
Right.
problem with these self-driving cars. Like even an AI model that performs well on average will every now and then just spaz out on a certain type of
Mm,
input.
right.
And that's what's been happening with these AIs. Like they work great for almost all the time. And then for some reason, it sees some sort of pattern and its neural network has a weird line in it and it causes the steering wheel to turn really quickly. And
Hmm.
so I think what's going to happen is this AI is going to they're going to have to figure out some sort of way to prevent it from making the wrong mistake. Like basically multiple AIs sort of like coming up to different suggestions and then something kind of resolving those suggestions to try to figure out
Hmm.
what the right plan to do. This is what they do on the spaceship. They make a redundancy of 3 and then 2 out of 3 win for the decision that gets made next. I think this will happen with the cars as well. I also think that certain roads will eventually be certified to be fully self-driving.
Right.
So, like a long stretch of the highway between, you know, Route 66, for example, could be
Hmm.
declared a self-driving zone.
Right.
I think that the inner cities will have lots of problems with that. So I think a lot of the expense will be certification of the urban areas where the
Mm,
roads are complex. And they'll have to do
right.
that by total sort of mapping of the area. And then once they have that, then I think that we will have self-driving cars, but it's going to take, a few more years to get there.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be really nice to have a valet on every car, right?
Yeah, I know that's what I was thinking. I mean, people who say they'll never do it and they'll always drive their own car, I just think, oh God, it'd be just great, especially if you have to commute somewhere. Is like, who wants to drive on your commute? You want to be doing something else.
Right.
So, and on top of that, it'll be way safer and your insurance will cost less because it'll never crash. So, I
Right.
mean, never on its own fault for the, once it's all operational and stuff. So,
Michael Hayden, though?
who's that?
No, Michael Hastings.
Who's that?
That guy that was in the car. He was like a journalist. Michael
Mm.
Hastings,
Mhm.
right? And then his car sped up at 140 miles and rammed itself into a tree. And
Mhm.
then Anne Hanaway, what was her
And
name?
Hesh, you got it.
Yeah, Anne Hesh. Like her car sped up and you can hear her brakes squeak. And then she
Mhm.
crashes into a house and then they carry off her thing saying, oh, she was critically injured. Then she like gets up and she's not really dead or critically injured. And
Yeah,
then she
that
died
was weird.
later. So
Yeah.
I think that look, the problem with these AI cars is it's one of the game over scenarios because once the AI is fully in control of your car, then if you're on the naughty list of some government,
Right.
your car will mysteriously crash.
Right.
Right?
Well,
That's
they're already talking about putting just kill switches in cars, right? They're already
right.
saying something about trying to put a kill switch in a car so if there was a terrorist attack or something or you're a criminal, they could shut you down. So, yeah, that's the dangerous side of things is letting the AI take over.
And that's the
and
great
not
thing
having
is
control.
that with AI, there's always this degree of some corner case that you didn't anticipate, and so you can always give plausible deniability. Oh, we don't know what happened. And just the AI spazzed out. There's an investigation on Tesla now. Da 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 da, da and then we never get to the bottom of it. I think that that's what's going to happen a lot. I think we're going to see in the next 2023 and 2024, there's going to be a lot more car deaths that are going to
Mm,
happen because it
mm.
seems that the intelligence agencies just can't take their hand out of the cookie jar. Even though the cat's sort of out of the bag now, I think they're going to continue to do it just because it's such a useful tool. Because unlike a crime scene, there's no evidence that you leave behind, or very very hard to find evidence, and it's so complex. Who can understand it?
Interesting. Yeah, unintended acceleration can happen in cars for lots of different reasons. There's a lot computers do a lot of stuff already, so yeah, interesting future. Well, what do you think? Going back to like Twitter and whistleblowers and stuff. So far they haven't revealed that the government did anything, right? And that's where I am curious is where the government interferes. You think that's what's going to come out in the Fauci files when they finally come out?
Yeah, it's like with Twitter. What you had was you had this backdoor access where DHS, FBI, politicians in government had this dashboard where they could submit requests to get people banned, right? And
Right,
that's what you saw with a whole bunch of people like James Wood, and Charlie Kirk. They're all upset because they were on this like do not amplify list.
right.
And what was the second part to that?
Do you think that they'll reveal government interference with the Fauci files when they come out? The 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 release
Yeah,
that we haven't seen yet.
yeah. Because Fauci is he's a good lightning rod, right?
Hmm.
And so it's like you can hate on Fauci all you want. That's actually really allowed. Of all the things that are
Hmm.
not allowed, hating on Fauci is really allowed. And
Right,
so I
right,
think that what he does is he's going to be the sacrificial lamb for this whole thing eventually. But I think it's going to come out after he retires and goes away, or maybe he'll mysteriously die, and then we'll hear about all the things, and then the leftists will hoot and their holler, and they'll say, "Oh, we were lied to because of X, Y, and Z," and maybe we'll even. I mean, I think that right now the globalists are holding this as a put option to blame the whole thing on China, right? Because they haven't really
right,
ended the investigation,
right.
and right now they basically have a pot that's simmering, and whenever China is thinking they're going to be able to take Taiwan, they can just turn up the heat on that pot of water whenever they want, and they can bring it to a boil, right? Like
Hmm.
if China does something the globals don't like, all of a sudden they're going to have these revelations that is actually, that they actually engineered the virus and released it. Right
Right,
now we know
right.
that it was a partnership between us and them. It might probably us, right? Probably,
Hmm.
but I think that they're keeping that option, and right now they're keeping us in limbo because they don't know how China's going to act, and they want to use it as the stick. And if they resolve the situation, the crisis, and shut the case on it, then they no longer get to play that option. So what we're going to get is we're going to get a bunch of ambiguous signals, and some small "I told you so's" that increment throughout until time passes. Maybe China, is plays nice, and then the whole sort of Fauci thing goes away. If China, or maybe he's sort of blamed for it. But if China doesn't play nice, I think what we're going to see is we're going to see Fauci testify that China made him do it, and then they'll be able to be the scapegoat for the justification for World War III. So
Cool.
that's yeah, cool. I think it's going to be interesting stuff, and we're going to get a little bit of drip, drip, drip disclosure, but I don't think we're going to get any major revelations. But eventually, we're going to get the whole story because it won't matter anyways.
Interesting. Well, that's an interesting way. That's interesting. I think I'm curious what we'll get with the COVID files when they come out from Twitter. That's where the government most likely interfered. So I'll show you what Trump is suggesting. Trump announced today his NFT collection, which I covered, but he also made another announcement, which was actually a big deal, which was this about what he's going to change in his first day in office. So I queued it up to where he starts talking about it.
First, within hours of my inauguration, I will sign an executive order banning any federal department or agency from colluding with any organization, business, or person to censor, limit, categorize, or impede the lawful speech of American citizens. I will then ban federal money from being used to label domestic speech as mis or disinformation. And I will begin the process of identifying and firing every federal bureaucrat who has engaged in domestic censorship, directly or indirectly, whether they are the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Health, Human Services, the FBI, the DOJ, no matter who they are. Second, I will order the Department of Justice to investigate all parties involved in the new online censorship regime, which is absolutely destructive and terrible, and to aggressively prosecute any and all crimes identified. These include possible violations of federal civil rights law, campaign finance laws, federal election law, securities law, and antitrust laws, the Hatch Act, and a host of other potential criminal, civil, regulatory, and constitutional offenses. To assist in these efforts,
There you go. So he says he's going to shut it down.
Yeah, it's a string of lies. Everything that he said right now, unfortunately, is a string of lies. And if they're practiced out, like where he unbans all lawful speech, like I want that, right? Like I'm not saying this because I want it to happen, but look, unrestrained free speech with this AI that's coming out is a contradiction to the system, right? It will end the system. You know, there's going to be more AI censorship. It's not going to reverse. And if it does reverse, and we can say whatever we want, like he's saying, then someone's just going to get one of these AIs and start, you know, destabilizing the elite apparatus. So they're not going to let that happen. And so I think I think he's chumming the waters, getting people are really freaking pissed about all this censorship and all this stuff. And he's telling people what they want to hear. But I know that the intelligence agencies that's just not going to fly with them. And so, yeah, I think it's interesting. I'd like to see, like, obviously there's some plot that's being played right now with, you know, Trump continuing to be the lightning rod that he is. And I don't think that his story is over. In fact, I think it's actually very high that he could be president again. Because, like, you know, look what they're doing to him. And he's still, and he hasn't basically calmed down. He still continues to be, as, you know, essentially arrogant as ever, that he's going to win. So I think that we may see a sudden turn where President Trump comes back to be the presidency, and that's going to, you know, further polarize the United States, you know, or maybe they're setting up for someone like Elon Musk. You know, that would be a really interesting thing. Like Elon Musk, he saved us from global warming. He got electric cars. He got, you know, robots and neural nets and plug-in brain implants. And then he becomes the president, and he was able to do that because the alternative was basically Biden, and, you know, and Trump doesn't even use email, right? So I mean, you pretty much have to know technology to be an effective leader, and Trump doesn't even write his own emails. Right? Think how effective Elon Musk would be, or someone like him, a technocrat, like running the United States. And so I think that right now, more conflict is going to come, so that option becomes more. So when that option is played, everyone's is finally like, oh, what a relief! We finally got a president that's going to end all the problems. But the problem is that president will do constitutional reforms, aka, you know, change the Constitution so that we can sort of progress into this new government. That's if World War III doesn't spill out before Trump gets in there. I think it's really possible that World War III could break out before 2024, and then Trump comes in there as sort of the strongman savior, You know, that, and then he becomes sort of the scapegoat for a lot of the bad stuff that the military does, just because he's so pro-military and he's so pro-American military domination. Like, I like America, but I don't like the globalist American empire. And
Right.
what we
Right.
need is we need like a Ron Paul in there that basically wants to make sure that we are strong domestically, but that we're not sending our money over to, foreign governments to be, absorbed through, graft. So,
Right.
you know,
Good luck.
yeah, that's what I think about Trump. I think that it's a lot of misinformation. I'd like it to be true. I'd like for everything that he says to come true. I'd like for, the FBI who censored people, but I mean, we can't even stop Maricopa County from shredding half their ballots, after
Right.
election day. Like this
Right.
idea that we're going to be able to just come in there and do something even much more extreme. I mean, like, it's one thing just to fix the election, right, and not arrest anyone. Just get the machines out of there. But but we can't even do that. And he thinks that we're going to be able to have a system that's going to be able to bring these people to justice. I don't see it unless the elites have something in plan where, secretly they want to have the improbable come out of left field. Like, remember all that. Like, the one thing that no one can do is predict what's going to happen in the future. That's the only thing. Like, I've never found anyone that's very accurate in predicting all of the things. Some people get close, but no one's able to predict like the surprises that come. And so I think that, we could see Trump look like he's down for the count, and then all of a sudden he's able to surge and and overcome the election cheating, and make it back into office.
Let me
So,
just offer some context, which is that all elections are fair and they never cheat.
they
Right.
never cheat.
That's yes. Right.
Especially this last one. It was,
Yeah. The one in
know,
Maricopa was fine.
they didn't even need
It
to
was
shred
good.
all those ballots. They were
I
going to
don't
win
even know
anyways,
about
right?
that. As far as I know, my guest is making that up. The election was perfect in Maricopa.
This is just my opinion, and I'm a little out there. So
Well, we've talked a lot about the future. You've made some interesting predictions. So, and said some things about technology that people are going to be, or, some people aren't ready to go down that road yet. So it's good for people to be exposed to it. But I think we covered everything I wanted to talk about today. It's good having you on.
yeah, Nathan, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I'll check to see if anybody left any notes or anything for you here. Let me check real quick.
And any angry comments in the comments section?
And people can follow. Yeah, some people talk shit. You know how people are, Zach. But you can follow Zach on Twitter at Perpetual Maniac, right? At Perpetual Maniac. Do you want to plug anything else today?
Yeah, if you guys want to see the Google leaks and see how the sausage was made, then go to zachvorhies.com. ZACHVORHIES. If you want the best place for news on the internet 24/7 and cut through the censorship, check out my news aggregator at blast.video, not .com, not .org, blast.video. You'll see Nathan and a whole bunch of your other favorite content creators on there. It gets updated every hour. You no longer have to play the social media shuffle. When you go there, bookmark the page, come to it every single day.
Cool. That sounds good. I got to check it out because my videos are on there, huh? Cool. All right, Zach. Well, good having you on. Thanks, everybody on YouTube. Thanks for the coffees. I didn't see any questions for Zach, so I'll read those on my next show. Thanks for the coffees. If you want to support the stream, go to buymeacoffee.com/lifttheveil, and you can leave a tip and a note. And thanks, everybody on YouTube. This was a great guest today, and we'll see you at the next one. All right, for now, that's what it is.
Bye.
Cool. I pressed